Hello, make Lent great again. That's the topic of this video, of this live stream. We did have something else planned, but John wasn't able to make it tonight, so we moved it to Friday. And so it's already up on the live stream's already up on the channel. So look at the title and the thumbnail, and I think you'll get the idea of what it is. I'm not going to spoil it here, but it's going to be pretty fun. So today is Make Lent Great Again. We're going to be talking about basically how to make a good Lent, a good penitential Lent, that is. So a lot of us treat Lent as a time of, well, I'm not even going to go there. If you are, I'm just going to say this. So Good Friday and Ash Wednesday, obviously the two lawful days that we have to sacrifice. We do 2 meals, or I'm sorry, not 2 meals, 3 meals, 1 normal size meal, and then 2 meals that are not as big as the 1 meal, right? Like that's fasting. Oh, okay. Oh, hey, Hayes. So please have us in your prayers. We have a cyclone hitting our city in the next few days. Okay, yeah. So is that different than a tornado or a hurricane? Sorry, just to give us some clarification, because a cyclone could be either one of those depending on the context. Or a tsunami. I guess that could be it. That would be a tsunami given Australia. So it's a hurricane. Okay. Okay, yeah. Yeah. If you guys could pray for Australia and Hayes' family in regards to the hurricane coming at their city the next few days. So just to get back on track, I thought that was notable to point out. So what is it? When it comes to Lent, right? Like we will kind of go into our grooves. We will go into, well, I'm going to give up pop this Lent, and I'm just going to give up pop this Lent, not tying it to anything. Like it's just, you're giving up pop, and that creates a problem, because what you're doing is you're sacrificing something, but you're not sacrificing for the right thing, right? Like you're giving up pop for Lent because you've always given up pop for Lent, or you've given up from the South, I guess, if you want to say soda, right? Like that's the wrong word. It's pop, but it's, if you're going to give up something and you've always given it up, you kind of get into this groove of, I'm just going to be giving up what I typically give up, and that's my Lenten sacrifice. Now, you don't have to do that. That's not a requirement of the church. The only requirement of the church is to not eat meat on Fridays and the 2 fast days, Good Friday and Ash Wednesday. Ash Wednesday is not a holy day of obligation. So we have a lot of traditions that we've established, but there's a few things that you can do to kind of like beef up your Lent in terms of making it more penitential, making it more challenging for you, especially for us living in the first world. The idea of the understanding of challenging is actually very challenging to do. We have food at literally every corner in a city, and in most rural areas, you're able to get food pretty fast. I grew up in a rural area, now I live in a city, and so like we don't have that. We don't have a daily sacrifice, right? Like, or a daily need to really stretch for something. A lot of what we need is at our disposal, and it makes us not rely on God so much, and we definitely take it for granted by and large. And so it's a matter of getting in the right mindset and appreciating what God has given us, especially those of us in the first world countries, uh, and how much we live above our means, right? And so I'm not saying like give away all your money. I'm not saying like, that's not the angle that I'm going here. I'm going at it from a spiritual direction, in which you uh, uh, hold yourself accountable to not indulge in the things that you typically indulge in. And it sounds very similar to the pop, like I'm going to give up pop for 40 days, right? By the way, with the charity thing, if at the end of this or during Lent you do need to do that's cool. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying that's not the point of this. But when you get into a program, like I'm in Exodus 90, I've done Exodus 90 a few times before, and it is incredibly, compared to anything I've ever done through a church like program, far and away like the hardest thing to actually do. And yet 100 years ago, it was normal to do a lot of these things. And so just applying it to Lent, like I'm not saying you take on the Exodus program, although you certainly can, like if you would like to. But Lent is a time to really challenge yourself and to make it penitential, and to tie it to Christ, right? Like that's the ultimate thing you're supposed to tie it to. You're supposed to tie it to God. And so it's like, I'm trying to think, let's see. Think of something that will help train you to lean on God more and your worldly comfort less, right? So a good example of that is like cold showers. And even though like cold showers are good for you, it is definitely something that when you start having them, when you start doing them, you greatly appreciate the warm showers. So it's not like that's a pretty immediate clarification or a distinction. If you want something that you could challenge yourself to do, it could just it could just be don't eat snacks, right? Like, but every single time you don't eat snacks, you tie it to God. Like you quite literally say a prayer, or you do something to that effect. That is actually more in line with what we're supposed to do than just giving up a arbitrary thing, right? Like you're supposed to tie what you're giving up and your desire to wanting God. And that's because if you don't do that, it's like there's a bunch of benefits to this. So you do increase your willpower, like in terms of what you can moderate with yourself. I forget if moderation is a virtue. I'm pretty sure it is. I just don't remember what the name is. Um, he feels the hungry with good things. But being able to moderate what you take in, like this is a time to test that. Like, okay, well, I can give up this any day I want. Okay, well, give it up and tie it to Christ's sacrifice. Like this is a great time to do that. And don't rest on what you think you can do. Like actually try it. And if you fail, that's okay. Like that's the other part of this. It's okay to fail. It is not a sin to fail. In this case, what you're doing is you are quite literally testing yourself in regards to how you tie your sacrifices to God, and you are trying to build that up because you are a temple, right? Like your body is a temple, and to practice such is like upkeeping the temple, like you're cleaning the temple out, right? Like, so kind of think about it from that standpoint. If looking at it from the standpoint of like maybe like a materialist perspective where you're kind of in the groove, just giving up pop or whatever. Obviously, you can tell which thing I give up the most. It is pop, uh, but it's just whatever you don't do. I'm sorry, whatever you do, like again, always tie it back to Christ's sacrifice and tie it to the fact that your body is in fact a temple for the Holy Spirit. So, um, let's see. Something I really like in the Magnifying 90 program is offering each day's mortifications for a person by name. Yeah, that's like really cool. Yeah, like you're like offering up your sacrifices for a particular person. I'm actually kind of confused as to why Exodus 90 doesn't have something like that, because like that's a really good practice. Um, they would probably say like we do a prayer at the beginning of each reading where we take time to pray for each one of our family members, but also like our fraternity, right? Like, but it's very like I'm very much a person about like specificity, and so that is a very I really appreciate that offering up for one person, and I hope you did me. Yeah. Um, so, yeah. So dusting the temple. Yeah. Whatever. It's just cleaning the temple, getting rid of the dust, and whatever. Um, Twice so far. Nice. Okay. Thanks. So that's my wife, by the way. If you didn't know. So the other interesting thing I wanted to point out, this will probably not be a long one, just because it's kind of like last minute. But another interesting thing is my wedding anniversary is going to be on Ash Wednesday, and so that makes that really funny. And the other thing is it's a 15-year anniversary, so we've been married for 15 years. So that's really funny. The other funny thing is Easter is on my confirmation day. So when I got confirmed, that's when Easter happens. So that's also funny to me. So it's just a very funny coincidence for me. And I just thought I would point that out because I'm sure my kids will watch this some other time or sometime in the future. But that's so I guess that's it. I don't really have much else. But if chat, you want to get wordy, cheeky, ask questions, point out something, either way. I mean, I put this out here about making Lent great again because it is important that we do that. And so that means to be very cognizant of Christ throughout your sacrifice, not simply, like I said, going into your groove. So if chat doesn't have anything, I'll probably just end it, and it'll be like the fastest live stream in a while, and that's okay. But Fat Tuesdays tomorrow, so Mardi Gras, as the French would say in Louisiana. So any tips on how to make Lent not just a challenge of giving up stuff, but really building up virtues and becoming closer with God? So, so one of the tips would be to, there's actually several. So thanks, Alex. There is actually several. So, if you wanted to, like Starskim pointed out, when you start each day with giving up a particular, like, you're not giving up something outright, but the mortifications that you plan to impose on yourself, you're giving them up for a particular person. And so, like, for example, not just giving up pop, but giving up video games, giving up your phone, like moving your phone away from you is a very good thing because it is a very big distraction for most of us. But it is part of it, like, you're not really going to get away from the challenge of giving up stuff. Like, for example, if you were to fast, like a hard fast, that means you're only drinking water. You may have some electrolytes to deal with some of the imbalances that happen. when you don't have food all day, you may want to do that. So do a hard fast all day for one day, if your health allows it. Obviously, like, I'm not advocating that you do it if you will get seriously sick or something. But if your health allows it and you haven't, you do want to test yourself, fasting, as cited by Christ, is one of the ways to get out demons. So it's not like a small thing. Like, it's like fasting is required. And so, and I'm not saying like to exercise them outright. Like, so, I'm not saying you're a priest, right? Like, I guess a capital P priest, like, but it is something that, giving up to that extent will help you, because sometimes it's not just giving up, it's the extremity of giving up. Like the longest I've ever fasted without food is 48 hours. And that 48 hours was really, really tough. I've never done that before. I've done 24 hours before, but I've never done 48 before. And it happened, I don't know, probably like 4 months ago. And it was hard. And it definitely makes you it forces you to reflect on why you're doing it. And sometimes we need that, where you are kind of pushed into a corner. And we don't really get those corners in first world countries, right? Like, we have food everywhere. Like, the hard part was actually like just staying away from all the food. Like, there's as soon as we get out of our subdivision, there's McDonald's and Taco Bell and Little Caesars and a number of other pizza places and a bunch of stuff I really, really enjoy. But like, it forces you to constantly be aware that food is a temptation, and also, that you're able to do it, especially with God. Like, we don't, especially with us in the first world, if you don't eat after 8 hours, like, you get some people who are like, oh my gosh, I'm starving, I'm like, I'm gonna fall down. And it's like, yeah, but probably not. Like, that's a mind game. And part of dealing with moderation in your life is that mind game. Like, how you get enticed and tempted to do things. And so the challenge is to fight that directly. And sometimes it takes you to, it requires you to go to an extreme, like doing a 48-hour fast or a 24-hour fast. But again, I'm not going to say like do that for everybody, only because like that might not be healthy for you. So if that's something that you're looking to do, to build you up, like, instead of going out to eat, like, for your 3 meals, you go to adoration, right? Like, each one of those times. And like, for me, like that, now that I'm thinking about it, I might just do that next time I have it. I do a fast, because I have places around me here, through, one's Chaldean, one's Latin Rite, going to different adoration times. And so that way you're tying that very, very directly to God in relation to giving up food. But like I said, if you are tempted with something, again, you're not going to get away from the giving up something unless you add something else. Like, for example, a holy hour of obligation, giving it to yourself, where instead of having free time or relaxed time, you're doing a devoted 1 hour of prayer to God. And that can take many forms. Like, it could be like saying the rosary until it fills that hour. It could be 40 minutes of, a particular devotion, or, and then 20 minutes of contemplative prayer, which is typically what I do with Exodus 90. So like, there's a lot of things you can do, but like I said, it's going to be really hard to not give up something, just because that is part of asceticism. And so it's not, yeah, that's gonna be hard to get away from. So I hope that helped. I know that was a bit rambly at parts, but um, the question you asked was very good and does require like a bit of nuance. So adding prayer or attending mass more often instead of the time spent doing the thing you're giving up. Right. So yeah. So going to, yeah. Let's see. Focus in on what you're hoping to accomplish with what you're giving up. Like if you're trying to overcome a tendency towards gossip or detraction, give up social media. Or like I know that for guys, like prawn's an issue. So just be a little creative and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Prawn's an issue for a lot of guys. Just moving away from like cutting off electronics for 40 days. And like I mean like you outside of work, you know, you don't go on your computer, you don't go on your phone, you don't have, I mean I don't know how many people still have these. You don't look at magazines, but you definitely like stay, like again, this is like an example of cutting your arm off. When Jesus said cut your right hand off, or I think cut your left hand off. I don't remember which one. It's better for you to go maimed than to take both your hands into Gehenna or something like that. I am paraphrasing that verse, and so I'm wrecking this. I'm sorry. But this is kind of an example of that. So you're not literally cutting your hand off, right? Like you're not really cutting your hand off. But what you are doing is you're taking an extreme action to make sure that you aren't sinning and to make sure that you aren't feeding your addiction. And whenever you want to go back to it, that is a perfect time, as inconvenient, unsatisfying, or crappy as it may be, to pray to God or to do something that is more God-centered. And I mean that. You're going to feel like crap. You're going to feel like when you have an addiction, it is not like it doesn't matter what addiction you have. When you want to do something and you can't do it, and even if it's going to God and praying to God, it's not going to feel as good. And that's okay. Like that is an incredible, like if you want to take away anything of this, that's a big one. It's okay to not have that same feeling when like the like I don't want to say ecstasy, but like the dopamine hit of whatever you're trying to hit, because our culture is really good at making things taste, one, amazing, and two, giving us like chemical reactions with just base, like pop, for example, hits so many of those levels. Sugar by itself hits so many of those levels. So it's a matter of recognizing that like what you're giving up it has a lot of short highs. That is to mean like they don't last long. They put you up real fast and they bring you back down. But the thing with God is you're not going to get that outside of extreme situations, like, you know, saints, right? Like there's some saints that have those situations, but like outside of those situations, you're not going to get them. You're going to get what's going to feel like a dull moment. And it's a dull moment that God's with you. And that's the important thing, is like God is with you, and that you recognize that, and that you pray and you communicate in that within that time. But it's going to, again, the feeling is going to suck. And that's okay. And eventually that feeling will start to go away. And so that's, I don't know, like, not to sound like a self-help guru, it's just like, this is like literally part of our tradition. Like this is like backed historically and scientifically in a number of ways. So it's not like I'm spouting something that most people don't know. Like most people know they should pray. They just don't do it. And they don't do it for a variety of reasons. And one of the reasons is because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel great. you're reflecting on your life and your actions, and some of your actions suck. And so when you take that time to pray, yeah, sometimes, like a lot of the times, especially initially, like breaking into that prayer, that ritual that you're doing with God, it's gonna suck. Like it's going to suck because you have to establish that ritual in the first place, but you also have to deal with the fact that you're not perfect. And a lot of us do not have that humility. And myself included, like I still have trouble praying. Like it's not, I don't want to give the impression that I'm perfect. I've mastered this. I haven't. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing Exodus 90 again. It's because it gets me closer to where I want to be, because I can't do it by myself. And God has put this program in my life in a way that I know with its help, I can get better. And the guys that I meet through the programs, same thing, that I know with I don't want to say within the fraternity, like we help each other. And so, and we try to help each other get better. And so that's really the great benefit of Exodus 90 in relation to this, is you do have somebody that is kind of going through the suck with you. Like it's, I mean, I'm just saying it how it is, right? Like I'm not trying to say, oh, well, he's sugarcoating. I'm not. Like some of it is crappy, and some of it, it's crappy because of what we've become accustomed to, and we need to get accustomed to talking with God on a regular basis. And if you aren't doing that, you're going to have these you're always going to have this tension, because you just haven't. It's like when you learn a new job and you never just sit down and learn the mechanics. You just try to get it done really fast, like while you're at work. And then once you learn the mechanics of it, it becomes like a streamline, but not like you're doing it, better and better each time. And it's not as crappy as it was the first time. And it just keeps getting better and better and better and better. And it's like, that's the same thing with God. When you're talking with God, it's not this paradise initially, right? Like, especially if you don't know how to pray, like that's another problem. Like I would bet most Catholics do not know how to pray as our tradition has taught. And that is unfortunately very sad, but that's another problem. But yeah, so let's finish up here with the chat. So something else I found very fruitful from Magnify 90 is not consuming media that doesn't nurture my faith. I paraphrase it as Catholic media only, but it's been great. Yeah, like even when you so it's kind of funny because like with raising the kids, it's been very much trying not to swear, because like I'm right now I'm just inclined to swear. Sorry, but I'm very much inclined to, or I'm sorry, it's very much just a show. Like imagine a word in front of there, right? Like it's a show. Like what can my kids watch that doesn't have the Rainbow Brigade in it, right? What can my kids watch that isn't promoting them to go to a club and meet a random dude and live in the moment and like do all this YOLO stuff, right? So it's yeah, poop show. Yeah, thank you. But it's like that is actually very hard for your kid, like to oversee what your kids are watching. And it's not like my wife and I can just watch all these shows beforehand. Like we don't have the time for that. So the idea of Catholic media only, like we live in Michigan, so we have kind of like this crazy overlap of a bunch of things. Like we have Sacred Heart Radio or Ave Maria Radio, and then we have Relevant Radio, and then so that's in the car. But then on YouTube, we also have like a bunch of people we go to where we'll listen to Talk with Matt Fradd, for example. I know there's not everybody can do those 3-hour talks that he has, but a lot of those are really good. Some of them kind of crap. Not a lot of them. It's not perfect, but a vast majority of them, you will find a great deal of insight in them. And it's mixed that with again, we do Clamavi de Profundis. That is a group that we listen to. They do dwarf songs, which sounds weird, and it is, but it's very Tolkien focused in that area. But then there's also very Catholic songs that they've originally made that sound beautiful. Like, if you want to know what modern Catholic songs sound like, Clamavi de Profundis is a channel on YouTube you should get acquainted with, because it sounds beautiful. It doesn't sound like the 70s crap. It doesn't sound like anything like you would expect from a quote unquote boomer parish. It is very profound music that really digs into our tradition, and they back it up with if you read their description beforehand, it's just beautiful. I don't know what else to say. It's great. All right, yeah, Exodus 90 idiot proofs it for you. LOL. Rosary in a year could help with learning to pray. That is true. It is a particular prayer style that he employs. So if you are not inclined to that prayer style, I am not inclined to that prayer style. I've told my wife that. I'm there's sometimes that what he does, I can't do that because of how I pray, but it's not bad. If you want to, because there are different ways of praying in the sense of how you use your imagination. And he kind of, Father Mark Mary focuses on it a bit at the very beginning about how he prays, or at least that's kind of how it comes off. I don't know if that's how he prays, or if he's just kind of giving a template, but it's that is not how I pray, but that may benefit you. So yeah, Father Mark Mary at Rosary in a Year. The chat is just me tonight minus Alex's question. And Hayes asked for a prayer request. So by the way, if you just came in now, Hayes is in Australia and they're about to be hit with a hurricane, or a hurricane. And so please pray for them. His city is going to be hit. Let's see. He has bite-sized pieces of a lot of them too. Yeah, that's true. So Matt Fradd has a lot of bite-sized pieces where it's 7 to 10 minutes long, and the way he the way he clips, it's actually what I'm going to be doing with what I did with Father John Brown, where we talked about the different graphs on the mental states of priests. That's going to be what I'm going to do is with Matt as the inspiration, cut those into pieces and put them out, because I don't think people have just 2 hours to sit and listen. Battle of Lepanto for the win. Yeah, so that's one of my favorite songs is Battle of Lepanto that they do. It's great. Well, yeah, that's true, but he's been quiet since I forgot him. Sorry, Hayes. Stay safe. Wow. Okay. So, all right. So I hope that was good. I know we haven't had a lot more talk. I guess from the standpoint of anybody who's listening now or later, if Mondays are not a good day, let me know, because I tend to, I don't get a whole bunch of people on compared to other channels. Other channels tend to get a lot, and that's okay. I'm not looking to be in competition with them directly. It's just a matter of, I just find it odd because some of the topics that we've brought up, I'll have people come back later in the comment section, and they will say very positive things about the topic, because a lot of these topics that we bring up, aside from this one, I'm sure a lot of people are bringing this one up, Lent is kind of like a feast for Catholic podcasters to bring up either something historical or just to say, hey, men and women, you can do better this time. So do better. Not to completely oversimplify my initial 15 minutes. But the topics that I bring up, I tend to get comments about it being fairly good. It's just I don't have like a wide audience, and I don't quite know how to handle that in terms of presenting it, because I'm not trying to follow the audience in so much as to just try and get that information out there. Now, what do I mean by that? So like, I don't want to give so I know I am monetized. I do have like this affiliate link. So I'm going to be completely transparent here. I'm not going to give, that's your summary. Sorry. That's your summary. Yeah. Lent is coming. Don't screw it up. So I don't want to give the impression that I'm trying to get money. I have other channels actually that I try to get money. That is like my statistics channel, which gets a lot more views than this. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is from this is a passion project for me, right? Like, this is something that I justify doing for one, if in the case that my kids, if I die, that they know how I feel about things. And I've had Father Eric on, and we've posted it out here on YouTube, and enough of you like it to have like 2,000 subscribers, and I really appreciate that. My issue is something like my video where I did the on the hand versus on the tongue. That debate doesn't die, like, at all. It continues to fester and come up over and over and over again. And yet I'm incredibly perplexed as to why my video has, only 8,000 views. And that's not to say, well, everybody should watch my video. To a certain extent, that's true. Like, when we posted it when we posted it, and then Father Eric put it in his homily and showed it to the people at Mass, like, a lot of people switched at Mass. Like, it was enough evidence, and it was hard. It's hard evidence, right? Like, so enough people switched, and that it was notable. And he, after Mass, he actually told me like the amount of people, or roughly amount of people that changed. And so it was not insignificant. And so and then Father Calloway will present it in his talks on the Eucharist, and yet nobody seems to be watching it. So I don't know if someone knows the algorithm better in the Catholic space, because I am just having a heck of a time trying to get videos that are more about statistics out there, right? Like, I care very much about the state of the church, and I feel that if more people simply knew about what's going on, that there would be movements, and especially with the idea of a reverent Novus Ordo movement with the young priests, right? Like, that's actually happening. And the only people that seem to be like, what is it? Like, yet there's so many people that will bang the drum of TLM only, right? Like, so I've made a video on that, and I guess it's just, I'm not trying. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining in the sense of, why aren't you just watching my stuff? It's more about understanding. Like, I don't quite understand why the algorithm isn't picking it up. And if someone has details as to why that is, please leave a comment in the section to help with that. Because at the end of the day, I'm trying to move it out for, like, I explain my reasons. They're not to make money. It's to quite literally convince enough people that, for example, on the hand drops more particles than on the tongue. And that is something that should be spread. Like, that is information that should be spread, because Father Eric and I did it in probably one of the most objective ways possible, which was just to have a black piece of paper or a black poster catch the particles and then take a picture of um, the posters after each one of those instances, each done 100 times, right? Like, so I'm not looking for, again, this isn't to say like, yeah. So I guess that let's see. I think she says that you want to use your expertise and experience to help the church and encourage people. Exactly. Like that's my point. And I see a lot of people who are doing the complete opposite, and I'm trying very hard. Like, there are some times where I feel very tempted to do the daily stuff, right? So where something comes up from the Vatican every day, or something comes up from the USCCB that is quite scandalous or has a twinge of being scandalous, and then commenting on it. I don't do that. But I play, like, I don't know. I don't quite understand. Like, I guess I'm just being transparent here, like, where it's like, I do have these temptations to do this, and I don't want to do it because it would compromise the integrity of my channel, and I do not want to do that. And so that's kind of where I'm coming at, because it is, yeah, exactly, because it is low-hanging fruit. Like, it is low-hanging fruit to point out the issue with the letter from the Vatican, from Pope Francis to JD Vance, right? That is incredibly low-hanging fruit, and yet everybody seemed to jump on it. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, like, I'm just going to wait for a theologian to talk about it and not just give my 2 cents, because at the end of the day, like, quite literally, at the end of my days at judgment, I will have to account for me saying this with not all the information available to me. And so there is a great problem with that, and me getting views for that is not okay. And so yeah, sorry, I'm not trying to, I know I kind of like took a tangent here, but it's just, it is something where I'm asking legitimately and sincerely for help in how to promote my material that I do think is good, and that many people have commented is a great benefit to them. And like I said, is a great benefit to them liturgically as well. And it's not to say to toot my own horn. It's just like, it's a spade, right? I'm calling a spade a spade. So falling crane. Sorry, there's the way it is, like, right in. Sorry, it's just whatever. It's a real temptation to exchange objectivity for slop or rage bait. I've seen many a Catholic channel dabble in it with little evident success. So this is the thing. They get success. They get people. Like, I know several channels that were less than 10,000 subscribers and are well past that because they decided to go into the daily crap. But the problem is, that they do benefit, and they're leading at the same time. They do tend to lead people away into dangerous places. And I don't say away from the church, although that could happen. I don't know definitively that that's happened, but the idea of you're promoting a vice over a virtue, like, gossip is still gossip, even if you have 30,000, 50,000, 500,000 people. And unfortunately, like, that's what I see. Like, I mean, it's one of the reasons why on X, like, well, okay, I'm not going to go into anybody in particular, but it's there are several people who kind of fit in that camp, and I'm trying to understand how I can combat that in a way that isn't compromising. Well, yeah. So to pray for Pope Francis too. Yeah, because he's just getting. I think he's just getting out of the hospital. So that's cool. He had double pneumonia, and potential kidney failure. Like, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good turnaround for someone with one lung and 88. Good information channels are like parting crucifixes. The devil likes to hide them. Well, I appreciate the compliment. So, yeah, I appreciate the compliment, Falling Crane. Let's see. Oh, I discovered those fairly recently, and now they're my favorite for making rosaries. Oh, parting crucifix. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, so yeah, she's been making a few rosaries. Gossip arguably gets worse when you've got a broad audience. Oh yeah, and like that's the thing. And at the end of the day, like you have to, like, you are going to be held accountable to God. At like that's like one of the biggest things. Like when it comes to those temptations to do daily things, that is one of those temptations that is quelled by that understanding that at some point I'm going to die, and at judgment God's going to ask me, why did you say this and to this many people, and it influenced this many people in this way, right? Like, because he's God, he's infinite, he could tell you just the domino effect of what you're doing, right? And he could just really pound home how crappy you made a situation when you didn't have to say a thing. And yeah, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like, it's something that definitely holds me back. Although I will say this, when it comes to a conclave, because conclaves are so rare, I will absolutely be following that, but I will be following it in a good nature, right? Like, I'm not going to follow gossip in the sense of, you know, I may say like, well, it seems like there's a leaning towards this pope or this cardinal, but I'm not going to say, well, this cardinal is like a douchebag or something, right? Like, I'm not going to come out and say that. Or I'm not going to say, I hope it's not this cardinal, because that doesn't matter. Like, how I feel about something doesn't matter when it comes to the cardinals voting in secret. Like, that, it just doesn't matter. It's more about being informative. So I agree with praying for the Holy Father. I've heard his back on the ventilator just today. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, so he's still in the hospital, but he's on the ventilator. So, okay, so that was an interesting tangent. So just wanted to be transparent with what's going on, because I don't want to give the impression I'm doing this for money. This is a passion project, not something I'm striving to go for money for. The times where I've tried to, so just to clarify, this is the last thing I'll talk about when it comes to money. The last time I tried to get money, I specifically tried to get money for data from Kara so I can do more analysis. Like, that's the type of stuff I've asked for when it comes to making money on this channel, because again, that information that from Kara and then putting it out there, I think that's going to go, I think that will go a long ways, as opposed to just kind of spending it on whatever, right? Like, at the end of the day, I try to feed it back into the channel, as opposed to putting it in my pocket just to put it in my pocket. So, yeah, that's it. Let's see, it's 10:03. So for all of you that have listened this far, I appreciate it. And, I think I'm going to get going because it is 10 and I've got work tomorrow. So, thank you very much for listening and asking questions. And like I said, if you have any ideas about the algorithm or how to maybe reach out to someone like Matt Frad, or I don't know, I'm hesitant to name other people just because other people, whatever. But to reach out to them, please let me know, because at the end of the day, I do think the evidence I've presented is not biased. It's fairly unbiased, and I think a lot of people would benefit from seeing it. Happy Shrovetide. I do not know what that is, but I will look it up after this. So thank you, Falling Crane, and yeah, have a great Lent. All right, everyone else, have a great Lent.